Hi, I'm Corey Kareen, and this is The Intersect. This week, I had the pleasure of speaking with Daisy Auger-Dominguez, a C-suite HR executive and author. She's worked in roles such as Chief People Officer for major companies like Google and Disney to help shape work cultures in times of change. And that work feels especially relevant right now. Job search is being rewritten by AI. Your resume might be written by a bot, scanned by another bot, and then your first interview with an avatar? So, how does one stand out in that process? How do you use AI without letting it flatten what makes you unique? And what's it like for recruiters? With so many AI tools, they're now faced with a new challenge: automation bias. That is exactly why I wanted to talk to Daisy, who has decades of experience in HR and who's been asking these questions for years, even before AI was in the mix. So, if you're in the midst of a job search or looking to future proof your career, or just trying to hold on to the human parts of work that machines can't take over, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Daisy Auger-Dominguez, welcome to The Intersect.
Corey, thank you so much for having me.
It's been a minute, and I was excited to get you on for all of the reasons. And, I've been seeing a few things about AI resumes, chatbots, reading your resume, doing your initial interview with a chatbot, and then actually interviewing with an avatar. Okay. And I thought this is change. This isn't just, hiring anymore it's not just, this is a human resource function. But this is a culture, this is a work culture conversation, and that no better person to have a work culture conversation with than you. So I'm excited to dive into all of this. The context: the job search is changing. Period. The end. It is changing, and AI seems to be changing every aspect of that process in some way. We've all seen it. It's like, okay, the AI slop written resume, which is like, it's not a good resume. It's read by a bot, and then you're interviewed. What does this mean for how we are human and people? The department used to be called Human Resources. That should be renamed anyway. But what do you think of this? What do we make of it? And as people entering the job market and in the job market, what are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts, Corey. And the first is that as a human, right, just as someone that lives in this world that's watching AI change everything, including the good things, right? It's generating these breakthrough efficiencies. It's in many ways unlocking new forms of productivity because it's helping us find shortcuts. And so when it comes to that, as not just, an HR practitioner, but also as a human, I live in this intersection of like, wow, this is amazing. And wait a second, what exactly are we doing here? Right? How do we use this without losing the essence of who we are? From an HR perspective, AI has made sourcing and screening and onboarding talent super fast, right? But
Yeah.
we can't forget, as you said, the people behind that process, right? Right now, it looks like you said, right? AI is writing the job descriptions. It's helping interviewing. It's helping select, right? But you still need the people that are not just filling the roles, but that are shaping the cultures in organizations. And so that's the space that I'm most fascinated with.
Yeah. And that's the culture of work is just fundamentally in a transformation.
Yes. Yes.
How you hire, how you onboard, how you do
Mhm.
your job. 5 years ago, we were talking about the workforce that was remote, that was going to come a hybrid, and that was the return. We
Mhm.
are past that conversation. We are now in a conversation about what it's like to work with these AI presences, but also just to your point about the whole process behind, sourcing, so that for the uninitiated, that's, it's when the HR person is looking, or when, a manager wants to fill a role, they quote
Mhm.
source a candidate. How is AI making that faster?
It's making it faster because you are relying on this technology to read through the hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes and cull data that will then ostensibly, right? And you're assuming that the data that it's pulling, because we're still figuring out how do we ask the right questions, right? How do we pull the right questions? you're assuming that then this data is going to pull, 15 top candidates, 25, 30.
Yeah.
And think about how it was done even application tracking systems, right? Like this is recruiters going into an inbox of resumes or even an applicant tracking system and reviewing resumes against keywords from a job description, right? And it wasn't always keywords, key job responsibilities. Like, what are you looking for? I'm looking for a digital strategist that does XYZ and has had this experience, right? Has achieved this. You're going through it. The human eye gets exhausted. I remember recruiters sometimes telling me, it's like, "Oh, Daisy, can I stop? I've read 100," right? And
Yeah.
I would make the human decision of saying, okay, right? Like you've seen enough. Now let's select the top candidates. That's how the human brain works. Now we are relying on technology to do that, and it's a language, right? It's calling words and it's pulling words, but it's not pulling the nuance of the human experience, right? It's not pulling this person had this really interesting internship and they identified this really amazing solution, and that has nothing to do with the job description, but
Yeah.
goodness, that could be a really interesting person to have on the team, right? That's not what AI is doing yet.
Yeah, that's not what it's doing. So it's helping you be very efficient, and you could get through more than 100 resumes. You could get through 1,000 resumes. But if it misses the unique internship that really, where someone sort of they did some interesting innovation or dot connecting or found us the pathway or so, I mean, is that that's the humanness, and it's not solving for that. So then what do we as job seekers, and if our resumes are just like, if we're just putting it in the like whatever AI machine to say, make me a resume that sounds
Yeah.
professional, it feels like it might suck some of that human. I don't know, how
Oh.
should you think about should resume, I mean, what is a resume anymore? Like, what's the right resume in this AI era? Yeah.
That's a great question, and we're still using resumes, right? Because we still need the data that's collected from these resumes, from cover letters, and like those feel so dated, but organizations are still asking for those cover letters. If you ever apply on LinkedIn, typically they'll ask you for your resume and for a cover letter. And it's their way of trying to identify whether, right, you are really interested in this role. What makes you unique? And for those of us who write job descriptions, right, AI can be a super helpful starting point, right? When you are just trying to figure out, like, how do I even get started? And I think of even young people, like my daughter who's turning 17, she's got her first job this summer. And when we were putting together her resume, and she was so adamant because I
I
think
love
that
that your 17-year-old has a resume. Sorry, I'm just,
yeah.
of
Oh, yeah.
course.
Well,
Yeah, of
she's my
course.
daughter, but
Yeah.
she had to put together a resume for this summer youth employment program here in New York City, and I remember she was really adamant that she wanted to do it herself. She did not want to use AI because young people are also struggling with the ethics, right, and the environmental impact of AI, which I love. But I even told her, I was like, "Oh, put something on it, on AI, start it, and then we'll build it, right? We'll add the human, the fun stuff." And it can be really helpful to organize your accomplishments, to refine your formatting. If you, like me, are someone that's awful at formatting, right? Like, it can help you figure that out. It can help you put together bullets for that align with the job description that you are targeting, right? So it will help you identify words that will hopefully pass through the system or pass through a recruiter and make you a more attractive candidate, but it should be your assistant, not your author, right? And
Mm, mm,
that's the difference, because the risk is that if you use it as your author, you're going to end up sounding like everyone else.
yeah,
And in the
yeah.
moments that matter, right, like a recruiter call or a final interview, you need to be able to speak to your story, not a prompt that you're giving to a machine, right? You need to be able to identify what and highlight your voice, right? Like nothing supplants seeing someone eye to eye, right? Right? Hearing a story from someone in the moment, right? That's uniquely different. And if you are going to outsource all of that to AI, you lose that part of you, and you lose what makes you what differentiates you and what makes you that unique candidate for that terrific role.
Thank you for that. It strikes me that your cover letter, or maybe there's never been a more important time for a cover letter, honestly, because you are trying to you're trying to differentiate yourself, that is the place. I mean, tell me you're the recruiter extraordinaire, but it's like that's the place where you give that anecdote that someone can't forget, right?
I like to think of the cover letter as kind of your first handshake, right? It's like
Oh, yeah.
it's like it should reflect the decisions that you've made and how you've made them. It should reflect the values that you hold that are important to you. It should reflect the impact that you make beyond just the bullets on your resume with percentages, right? That's a smart resume shows, impact numerically so that people can see that quickly. Where in your cover letter is where you add the heart to that, right? And when you add the secret sauce, your magic, that's what your cover letter is. And that's what the purpose of a cover letter has been for so long. And I feel like we've lost even the art of writing a really creative and beautiful cover letter. Think of it as your story, right? It's that handshake when you're like that 10, 20 second elevator speech, right? That we used to practice
Yeah.
for years in our careers. I was like, that's your cover letter.
In an AI resume world, and you're saying, yes, it can help you with structure, format, the things that you should list out. It really is these are facts, right?
Mhm,
But then
mhm.
the heart piece is the cover letter, and maybe we're producing those cover letters in different ways. I mean, we can talk about that too, but that's the place where you actually, I don't want to say not use AI, but you would use AI in a different way. I mean,
Yeah,
I myself as a writer would say like, "Oh, I probably should write that myself," because I mean, I personally feel like ChatGPT will flatten some of the things I say,
totally.
but I communicate for a living. And so
Mhm.
always start with my base and then input it in. But it feels like in this case, the the sort of coach companion, I mean, how would you advise to use ChatGPT for the cover letter? I mean, but yeah, how would you advise to
Yeah.
then do that piece of it? Yeah.
I mean, similar to your resume, it can be a little starting point, right? You can use it. I mean, like we used to use thesauruses to find other words, right? Like there's a way of using there's a reason why tools exist, right? It's to help us. And we should look at it as a tool, not the end all, right? And so it's like, hey, I'm trying to say this in a cheeky way. Can you help me find some ideas, right? It's like I want this to feel like me. And the thing about AI, and there's so much that's been written about this, is that it kind of gives you this false sense of security because it's so positive. Right? And
Yeah.
I tend to be, I tend to be both very respectful. I'm one of those people that's like, please, could you do this, right? But I'm critical of it, and I'll push back and say, no, that does not sound like me, or no, that's not what I asked for. And so you want to be thoughtful, and you want to creatively think like, how do I use this as a tool to help me show up as the best version of myself while not just sounding and using all the words that it's given me, which is what everybody is going to say. You see that on social media, you see that in articles where you're like, I have seen that sentence like 20 times already. Right? I have seen someone say that. And the truth is, resumes and cover letters, they tend to be somewhat repetitive at some point, but there's always something that's going to make you stand out, you different. And that only you know. ChatGPT does not know. You are the owner of the stories and the experiences in your mind and in your heart.
As you were talking, I was thinking about how back in the day, I'd work on my resume and then I would, I'd feel good about it. And then I would like print it out, a draft, and then I had my printed copy. And before I had it printed on a thicker, nicer,
Yeah.
piece of paper to mail out, because that's, my Southern culture. It's like, okay, good cardstock. Okay. But before I did that, I shopped it around to some of my like mentor like people,
Yeah.
friends, and that's actually gotten lost in the digital world. And it's harder for people to really digest digital information than that piece of paper. But I'm just thinking about that feedback process. And it just strikes me that maybe a feedback process to get somebody to look at it, because somebody that actually knows you versus a chat GPT actually, I don't know. I'm just thinking of ideas as someone who wants to stand out and not have my story flattened a bit. I think about the college essay. You get a few people to read that, right?
That's technically what ChatGPT does, but the sources, right? You do not know the pure sources, right? I think of peer review. That's essentially what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we would be selective. We would find a mentor. We would find someone in the field, right? You would select your sources. You can. ask ChatGPT to do that, but even then, I found it making terrible mistakes. I have listed the sources that I want, the quotations, and when I've gone back, I've checked and I was just like, oh, that never came from that source. That never came from that place.
Mm.
That was maybe from like some Reddit conversation that had the words that I just asked for and it gave it to me, right? And I, I know people love Reddit, but I'm like, I'm not going to get all of my information from some random Reddit conversation that just happened to have the same sequence of words that I just asked for. And that's what ChatGPT does. Remember, there are a lot of jobs that, yes, it's just like anybody can do it, similar skills. But when you start thinking of more differentiated jobs, more unique jobs, that's what the world of work is turning into, right? Is the things that technology will do, great, outsource that, do all of that. And that what can only humans do? And
Mm.
that's when we need to differentiate ourselves. That's when we need to say, only I can do that. That is like nobody else has this perspective. And that's how I can build, create, connect, engage in a way that's going to create a differentiating competitive advantage for your organization or your team.
Wonderful. You're jumping me to future proofing your career. I still
Yes.
said it wrong. You get it. Future proofing your career.
Yes.
This is what you're talking about. It's how do you bring out the IP in the human, the
Yes.
you that is the human versus the machine? And if the world of work, as you say, is dividing into two, and you need to lean into your you-ness or
Mhm.
something, how does one do that? And what is that process like? And
In our previous live working together, we talked a lot about human bias, and I think that we need to talk about automation bias, right?
Mm, mm,
I've coached HR teams through situations where there was human bias and automation bias, right? Where an AI tool flagged someone as a low fit, right? Like, not this is not a good candidate, and I've tested it out, but their lived experiences, their potential, right, which were not pulled from that data, were precisely what that team needed to evolve, right? And what the conversations were on the leadership team about what they needed, but that did not show up on the job description in the way that were captured by AI. And so that's also something that we need to be mindful of. And that's also culture, right? Because it is the
yeah.
culture of, as an organization, recognizing, right? And that's what a lot of organizations are doing, which is really smart, defining guardrails and defining, how to use AI thoughtfully and smartly, right? And it is one of the guardrails that I always recommend is just like, do not take what AI gives you as the final answer, right? You are the final answer, right? You are the leadership team, or you are the manager, or you are the recruiter that knows precisely what this organization and team needs. Use that and leverage that, because that is how we continue not only to support the culture that we have, but what we add to the culture that we want.
It it sounds like too that then human connection, I mean, what is the saying? It's not what you know, it's who you know. Um, it's which I found to be true
Yeah.
professionally, and it not even in a sort of just in a way of our jobs are relational, right? We connect with people and then we build things with the people, right? It's all about, and I found that people that are successful, at least in my line of work, media, are people that know how to communicate and connect and build things
Yeah.
together because it is based on these relationships of getting people to do things together. And if you're if you're being sourced by way of a big pool of data that the human can't tell that they need your resume, making forging these connections with these mentors, that's really hard to do in a digital world, in an
Yeah.
AI world, connect with people. But at the same time, we have more opportunity than ever to just, I don't know, you can connect with anybody on, you can get somebody to get you a meeting, in a different way.
I think we get so worried about the dangers of AI replacing us that we forget that, to me, that's not the danger. The danger to me is forgetting how to be fully human while using it, right? That
Ah,
that that will stop remembering, that will stop deciding, that will stop questioning, that will stop connecting, that will stop relating to each other in a way that builds magic. I'm fascinated by this MIT Media Lab study. They separated three groups to write a standard SAT essay. There's one group that was asked to write the college essay standard, right? Just like old school do it. Another one that was allowed to use Google search. And then the third was allowed to use AI. And what they found was that the SAT essays with AI, they bypass like hard cognitive processes, right? So they were less creative, right? Memory decreased for those individuals. Like they couldn't repeat what was in that essay, right? Because they did not write the essays, right? And so it reminds us that if we outsource these basic cognitive loads, right? When we outsource the craft of creating, right? Our brains, synapses connecting and leaning on not just what these large language models are telling us, but what we know from the classics and physics and that trip I took 3 years ago and that,
Yeah.
that community that I met, right? That's when we bypass the good and the special. And if we lean too heavily on machines doing that for us, I think I heard Brene Brown recently say that we're at risk of becoming expert curators of mediocre content
Oh,
because
dear.
because we're no longer creators and connectors of fun and creative and bold ideas. We're just curating what someone else is telling us. And that worries me in general for society, but in particular for young people entering the workforce.
I love shout out to Brene Brown too.
Ah,
That
yes.
she, the original, the OG. Yeah, I'm just sort of thinking about the young people piece, and it's like two worlds of work effectively. This tech, the kind of robotic, the kind that can be done with a machine and more efficient and should be, and then the other space, which is like a sort of messy playground of connecting ideas and, working together. And, I think some of the hardest things to do at work are learning how to work with other people because, it's a very, and yeah, and we've sort of retreated into, our Zoom life, but and what you're saying, the nuance of is really about work culture and the sort of good parts of it that you need. And I mean, look, I don't think the answer to that is like you put the suit back on and we do the 9 to 5 again in the 5-day work week. It's like that construct is, but so what is it? And I think, that space where figuring out why you need to connect with other people, what you're getting from them, that's all being rethought. Obviously, your sort of specialty, but the piece for young people entering the workforce, if you're not learning the nuance of how to connect and do those kinds of things, it's you really are losing something. You're just learning the transactional aspects, which that's not going to get you to the next place. You have to learn something deeper. So I mean, look, it's very existential. We can't solve it here, but I just the conversation putting I think words to this is really helpful because it's people feel very alone and very scared. They're scared AI is going to take their job. They're scared if they don't go to the office, they're going to get fired. I mean, all of the things. So, I mean, sort of maybe just back to kind of future proofing and getting yourself set up. I have. Are you okay with rapid fire? I have some rapid fire questions for you. I mean, you can answer them less rapid fire, but they're yeah. How do you use AI right now, either personally or professionally?
Oh, I use AI to help me get unstuck and to organize my ideas when I have too many of them. I use AI to help me get started when I'm writing, let's say, a policy, and I like to think of my policies like screenplays, right? So I'm just like, I don't want to write a standard policy. I want to write something that people are going to enjoy reading. So that's where I add my unique voice and humor and whatnot. But sometimes I'm just like, what are the basics? Right? Like, what are the basics that I'm forgetting? Certainly, I use like Grammarly for spell checking and grammar and that point. But I use ChatGPT to help me verify. And then I verify on top of that. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I love asking it that because it's like it's having like a research assistant that's there culling data really quickly.
How about, what's the most overrated career advice in this AI era? What are you seeing that's just like, no, no, I don't think that's right?
Interestingly, I recently heard, I think it was a CMO of Netflix. It was on Instagram share how they used AI for their performance evaluations. And she was saying that in the system that they have, there was an AI tool that they could use. And she had to write 23 performance evaluations. And as most humans do, you wait till the last minute, right? And she did them quickly, but she was so, pleasantly surprised by how quick it was and how smart it made her look and how well organized. And I thought, that's great. As an efficiency tool, that's fantastic. But what worries me is you're only going to use AI to write your performance evaluation. You're not going to speak to that particular experience that really resonated with you or that worried you about someone, and it could be, a growth moment for that individual. And so I think that's one of many examples of like, oh, just feed it to AI and it will do it. I was like, again, yes, use it as a starting tool, but do not let that be the sole arbiter of what you communicate and how and what you say to others. And also, let's not forget, we need to use our brains always.
I watched that. I saw that clip that you're talking about, and I mean, I watched it with interest, and I thought, wow, it's really interesting that. Well, my
Yeah,
reaction was like Netflix is letting her talk about this. I just thought that was interesting, just from a media perspective, and I mean, I give her a lot of credit for just saying it out loud
being
because I
honest.
think
Yeah,
I think everybody's doing it, or not.
totally.
I shouldn't say, but you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying. But it's like we feel like it's in secrecy, and you don't want to tell people that you're doing it, and you want them to think that you actually wrote the thing. All
mhm.
right. There's just a lot of okay, so
Yeah,
there's a lot of I mean, I obviously didn't write all those reviews, but I've, like, written a lot of reviews in that period, but my review from, my executive boss as an exec it really mattered to me still. Something that was put on that paper and you're like, permanent file, whatever that means anymore, but it mattered, and I think about the reviews that I've gotten, and then just what sticks with me are the anecdotes actually of that this is why, here are all the ways that you've grown, or here are the things that you need to work on, and like anecdotes of that are what you remember actually. So it's just interesting that you say that, and obviously that I think that an entire process will be disrupted in some way, and someone will create, some better way or something instead of this sort of annual performance review. Maybe there's a different way to do it, but I think that's a very helpful one to think about because those things matter to the people receiving them much
yeah.
less than they matter, I mean, I say it as a manager, to the person writing it. So,
No,
yeah, yeah,
it is true. I mean, it's part of being human, Corey. We all wanna feel seen, we all wanna feel valued, we all wanna feel understood. And if we're
yeah,
reading a review and we're thinking, "A machine wrote this," right? We're not gonna feel any of those things, and we are wired to want
yeah.
that, to seek that. And so when you lose that, then you lose that interest, right? You lose that connection. You lose that spark that you want in the folks that are working with you and for you. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that, we're talking a lot about being human. It's like the human part of it, and you referenced it earlier, the human part is hard, right?
Yeah.
Like working with
Yeah.
humans is hard. It can feel really appealing to just do the easy stuff, right? To just feed it into ChatGPT. And I was like, and so I don't want to shame anybody about doing that because we all like shortcuts, we all like things that are easier. What I want to emphasize is that there is beauty in the hard human work, right? There is creativity, there is energy, and there is what we are wired to want to do, which is connect and engage and be seen. And that can't be substituted by technology, not yet, at least.
No, not yet. What's one thing job seekers should stop worrying about right now?
Think we're so worried about being replaced by AI, and we're not worried enough about upholding and maintaining our humanity. And so we're just worried that AI is going to take our jobs. And some of us, like myself, are just like, let's learn about it. Let's learn all those tools. That's fine. I was like, but how do I learn and utilize these tools vis-a-vis my humanity and what makes me unique? And I think we're worrying too much about the other one and not enough about the human part.
That's right, good point. What's one surprising way AI could actually help women at work?
Huh. Well, I have a friend who is a fellow Googler, Stephanie LeBlanc Godfrey, and she's the founder of Mother AI. And I love that
Oh.
she is advocating for, particularly for mothers, but I think for anyone to utilize the power of AI and technology to, as she says, live a balanced and successful life. And so I love that, she's on LinkedIn and she writes suggestions all the time of like how she came up with she's got 3 kids, their summer schedules with ChatGPT, how she puts together their snack routines with ChatGPT, right? Like, how do you leverage this? And so I remember when she came up with it, I was like, I just thought it was so brilliant because yes, we're all using this, but like, think about working mothers who have
Yeah.
so much on their plates. If we can outsource something strategically to help us then spend more time with our kids, right? To spend more quality and engaged time with them instead of like, I have to spend the next 2 hours writing these schedules that are going to suck the life out of me. And then I'm just going to be
Yeah.
so angry and tired afterwards that I can't even have space to mother. It's like, I think she's helping us be the mothers that we can in this day and age. So I love that.
I love it too. Thank you for inventing that. And yeah, as working mothers or just as women, these things that we have, managing of the other things. And when we
Yeah.
speak of the emotional labor, sure, I'm not sure ChatGPT can really help us with that, but let's see. But let's see if it's our therapist. But the sort of management of all of the other our other jobs or other multiple
Yeah.
jobs, using that and then taking some of that time back. I did want to touch on. I mean, you've published 2 books now. You're now a Forbes contributor. I've looked at some of your read some of your columns, and like I said, I think you're basically now writing your 3rd book live. So you're in an author community as well, and I mean, I imagine the book community is
Oh,
not very excited about ChatGPT, or
no.
maybe they are. I don't know. Just so you as a writer, I just love to
Yeah.
hear
I
some
think
quick
it's a
thoughts on that.
mix.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a mix. I have a lot of I mean, like you, right? I've worked in a creative community for so long, and then now I am part of that community, and there's a lot of worry and concern, right? I was just at my gym today, and one of the women that works out with me is an actress, and she was talking about how she was so worried about these ads that are, I think she was saying Facebook, I can't, or YouTube, and they're AI generated. So it's like it looks like people. And she was commenting on one that was supposed to be Oprah, but and it's like Oprah saying like, when I had my first child, and she's like, that's not Oprah, right? But and she said, I was like, this is why we picketed a couple of years ago, right? Because we wanted to fight AI taking over all our jobs. Well, authors are worried that AI, and it is, right, and it's been approved. AI can use all of our books, right? My books are out there. My books, my words, my language, and so the concerns are, and it's fighting it, and I think we can't like the train has left the station, right?
Right. Right.
So I think the mix is the concerns and the I don't want to be part of it, and the other part is where I think where I am is just like I don't want to fight this. I want to engage with it, and I want to be able to create, right? And I want to be able to add to that, and I want to lean into it, knowing that yes, my content is being used widely. Then how do I use it in a way that allows me to shape it, right? Not just let it be shaped by the 10 to 12 people, very wealthy and influential people that are controlling the world of AI right now. And there's billions of us being impacted by it. I was just like, oh my gosh, right? And that has always happened, right? There's always been an imbalance of power.
Yeah.
But I was like, where do I craft my little space in there that I can shape and create and build? And if it's just amplifying other women who are doing amazing things in this space, I was like, I'll do it that way, right? Like, what does it look like? And so and I don't know what those answers are yet, Corey. I don't think many of us do. I'm in the space of like, okay, this is moving very fast, and I'm not gonna let it. I don't want to fall so behind that then I can't even engage with it.
I love the idea of looking at the whole picture, accepting that it is here, right? We are in this, and then figuring out how you carve your space
Mhm.
as your own sort of creative person living in this, world where it's all connected. That's great. Talking with Daisy is a reminder that even as AI reshapes how we hire, screen, and work, the fundamentals haven't fully changed. Curiosity, creativity, and how we show up for each other are still what building strong teams and strong careers consist of. For recruiting in this era, it's still about finding the human that can fit like a puzzle piece into the team. Daisy tells us that sometimes recruiting with AI might miss the nuances of who we really are. So if you're job searching or planning your next move, her advice is simple. Learn the tools, use them where they help, but don't lose sight of what makes you you, what makes you human. That's what will set you apart. Thank you for listening to The Intersect. And if this conversation was helpful, share it with someone navigating the job market. And stay tuned. We'll have more conversations coming on what it means to live and work in our AI era. And if you liked our show, give it a follow wherever you're watching or listening. We'll see you next week.